On August 22, 2024, the waters of the Red Sea shimmered under the fading light of the day. Known for its vibrant coral reefs and historic wreck sites, the Red Sea was a paradise for divers, offering unparalleled underwater experiences. Rachel Thompson, a professional diver with years of experience, had joined a small group led by a renowned dive master to explore the wreck of the SS Thistlegorm, one of the most iconic dive sites in the world. This particular dive was scheduled for the night, when marine life becomes more active, and the eerie beauty of the underwater world is amplified under the beams of their dive torches. The group was seasoned, their equipment meticulously checked, and spirits were high as they prepared to descend. Night dives were always thrilling but demanded heightened vigilance. The ocean at night was a different world, pitch black, except for the torchlight cutting through the water, revealing glimpses of marine life in motion. For Rachel, it was another chance to embrace her passion for the ocean and its unique tranquility, even amidst the adrenaline rush of the unknown. The temperature was inviting as the group entered the water, and the descent was smooth. Their torches illuminated patches of the wreck, revealing schools of fish darting in and out of the twisted metal. Lionfish hovered like ghosts in the dark, their spines casting long shadows, and a moray eel peeked out from a crevice. The group moved in unison, their careful movements ensuring minimal disturbance to the underwater environment. Rachel, always eager to explore, drifted slightly ahead of the others. Her torch scanned the wreck, picking out fascinating details. Rusted wheels, abandoned crates, and the skeletal remains of a motorcycle entombed within the ship. She was focused, her breathing controlled, as she marveled at the haunting beauty around her. The distant glow of her dive buddies' torches reassured her that she wasn't far from the group. Yet as the minutes ticked by, an unsettling stillness began to creep into the water. The usual hum of marine life seemed to fade, and the darkness around her thickened. Unbeknownst to Rachel, a large oceanic white-tip shark had entered the area. These sleek and powerful sharks are notorious for their bold and unpredictable behavior. Known as opportunistic hunters, they are drawn to movement and disturbances, especially in the dark waters of the night. Rachel's torchlight and position ahead of the group had inadvertently caught the shark's attention. The attack happened with terrifying speed. In the near-total darkness, Rachel had no warning. The shark struck from below, its serrated teeth sinking into her arm with brutal force. The impact knocked the torch from her grip, plunging her into near blackness. Her flailing movements and the scent of blood in the water further triggered the shark's predatory instincts. It circled back for another strike, clamping down on her leg. Rachel's muffled cries of pain echoed through her regulator, barely audible amidst the chaos. The group, alerted by the commotion, turned their torches toward Rachel's direction. The sight was harrowing. Clouds of blood billowed in the water as the shark thrashed, its powerful body silhouetted against the faint light. The dive master, experienced but visibly shaken, signaled the group to stay calm while two divers rushed toward Rachel. The shark, momentarily disoriented by the additional lights, retreated into the dark void, but the damage was done. Rachel was limp when her dive buddies reached her. They worked frantically to stabilize her, securing her regulator and wrapping tourniquets around her arm and leg to stem the bleeding. Every second was critical as they began the ascent to the surface, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on them. The journey up felt agonizingly slow. The decompression stops necessary to prevent further harm, but added precious minutes to the ordeal. When they finally breached the surface, the crew on the dive boat was ready. Rachel was hauled aboard, her wetsuit soaked in blood, her face pale and unresponsive. The dive master relayed the severity of her injuries, and the crew immediately administered first aid. Despite their best efforts, the blood loss was too severe. Rachel's pulse weakened, and within moments, she was gone. The group's relief at reaching the surface was replaced by the crushing realization that they had lost one of their own. The tragedy sent shockwaves through the diving community. While not commonly involved in attacks, oceanic white-tip sharks have long been recognized as a more aggressive shark species. Their unpredictable nature and the conditions of a night dive created a perfect storm for this fatal encounter. Authorities responded swiftly, launching an investigation and immediately banning night dives. Experts reviewed footage and dive logs to piece together the chain of events. They concluded that the shark's presence near a well-trafficked dive site was likely linked to overfishing and disrupted marine ecosystems. With fewer natural prey, sharks were increasingly drawn to areas frequented by humans, associating them with food sources. Rachel's death was a sobering reminder of the risks of interacting with the ocean's apex predators. Tributes poured in from colleagues and fans who remembered her as a passionate marine conservation advocate and a fearless underwater world explorer. Yet, her untimely end also ignited debates about the ethics of night diving and the protocols for ensuring diver safety in shark habitats. In the weeks following the incident, diving organizations implemented stricter guidelines. Night dives were subject to greater scrutiny, especially in areas known for shark activity. Divers were required to carry additional safety equipment, including noise deterrents and emergency signaling devices. Educational campaigns emphasized the importance of understanding shark behavior and respecting their role in the ecosystem. For those with Rachel on that fateful dive, the memory of the attack was a haunting reminder of the ocean's dual nature, its breathtaking beauty and relentless power. Once a place of wonder and discovery, the Red Sea became a somber reminder of what they had lost. Rachel Thompson's story serves as a cautionary tale not only for divers, but also for all who venture into the wild. Humans are visitors to the vast and mysterious ocean, subject to unpredictable and often unforgiving laws. Though marred by tragedy, her legacy is a testament to the fragile balance between human curiosity and the natural world. The water was exceptionally clear off the coast of Gansbaai, a small fishing town in South Africa in the late summer of 2002. Known as the Great White Shark Capital of the world, Gansbaai's reputation brought both advantages and disadvantages. Tourists flocked to the area for cage diving, hoping for a glimpse of the notorious predators. However, seasoned divers found a different kind of allure in the nearby reefs. Beneath the waves was a thriving ecosystem full of life, with schools of fish moving like shimmering clouds and vibrant coral in technicolor. For those daring enough to leave the safety of the boats, it offered a tempting yet perilous playground. One of those regulars was 33-year-old diver Matthijs "Matt" van der Leyen, who had been diving in these waters for more than 10 years. Born in Durban, Matt had spent most of his life traveling the South African coast. He just loved the ocean. He wasn't a marine biologist or an adrenaline junkie. As someone who respected the sea and its inhabitants, Matt was known for his calm demeanor and careful planning. Always cautious to avoid unnecessary risks, he had previously dived with smaller sharks. However, even his experience couldn't protect him on that fateful afternoon. Matt arrived in Gansbaai early in the morning, stopping for coffee at a small cafe and chatting with the locals. The weather was perfect, blue skies and a light breeze that barely disturbed the water's surface. After weeks of planning, he was eager to explore a lesser-known reef a few kilometers off the coast. Fishermen called it Devil's Crown, as it lay in deeper waters, far from the typical tourist spots. The reef was known for its larger predators, but was also considered stunningly beautiful. However, due to a last-minute illness, Matt's dive partner for the day, a younger man named Elias Koster, had to cancel. Despite this, Matt decided to dive alone, confident in his ability to handle it. By mid-afternoon, he was anchored near the reef on his small rental boat. The area was peaceful, with few fishing boats in sight. After years of diving, he carefully double-checked his equipment before entering the water. The descent was smooth. As the underwater world came into view, the noise from above faded. The reef was stunning. Vibrant coral formations stretched across the ocean floor, teeming with sea fans, darting fish, and the occasional moray eel peeking from cracks. Matt moved slowly, maintaining a respectful distance from the marine life. As he swam deeper, the light from the surface began to fade. The water remained clear, though it grew colder. Matt checked his oxygen levels and adjusted his buoyancy. At 20 meters, he was well within his comfort zone. At that moment, Matt noticed something unsettling: a sudden silence. The fish that had been darting around the coral had disappeared as if they had vanished into the darkness. He paused, letting his instincts take over. Slowly, he turned and scanned the water. That's when he saw it. A great white shark, easily more than 4 meters long, emerged from the murky blue. Its dark dorsal side contrasted sharply with its pale white underbelly, moving with eerie grace. Matt, however, remained calm. He knew not to panic. Abrupt movements could provoke an attack, as he'd read countless stories of shark encounters. Slowly, he began to retreat, keeping his eyes on the predator. Despite his racing heart, he focused on breathing steadily. The shark's small black eyes never wavered as it circled him. At first, it seemed more curious than aggressive. Hoping the shark would lose interest, Matt continued backing away. But then, without warning, the shark abruptly turned and charged, moving with astonishing speed. The shark's razor-sharp teeth sliced through Matt's wetsuit and flesh, clamping down on his abdomen before he could react. It was instantaneous and excruciating. Matt fought back, punching the shark's gills and nose, desperately trying to break free. The water turned red with blood, intensifying the predator's aggression. With a violent shake of its massive head, the shark dragged Matt deeper into the water. As Matt struggled to hold his breath, his regulator came loose. The combination of pain and oxygen deprivation blurred his vision. On the surface, Reuben Fick, a retired fisherman, was piloting a small charter boat when a tourist noticed the thrashing in the water. Reuben grabbed his binoculars and spotted the unmistakable dorsal fin of the shark beneath the surface. Recognizing the danger, he quickly steered the boat toward the commotion, shouting for his passengers to grab the emergency medical kit. When they reached Matt, the water was eerily calm. They found him floating face up, his body pale and limp. The shark had vanished into the depths and was never seen again. Reuben, assisted by a nurse named Annika Joubert, managed to drag Matt aboard the boat. There was a terrible mess of ripped flesh and exposed bone in his abdomen, and his wetsuit was ripped. Even though Annika tried her hardest to stop the bleeding, Matt's injuries were fatal. His pulse was rapidly fading, and he was not responding. Minutes later, he was gone. As the boat raced back to shore, the crew sat in stunned silence. The atmosphere was solemn, the impact of what they had seen beginning to weigh heavily. The event served as a sobering reminder of the ocean's unpredictable nature. It was a devastating loss for Annika that would follow her for years. Furthermore, it marked the end of Matt's lifelong pursuit of the sea's allure and mystique. The diving community was shaken by the swift spread of news about the attack. Matt was remembered by family and friends as a skilled and cautious diver who deeply respected the ocean and its creatures. The tragedy served as a stark reminder that even the most experienced divers are vulnerable to the unpredictable dangers of the wild. In the weeks that followed, local authorities and marine experts debated whether the shark had been provoked or if it was simply a case of misidentification. Some theorized that the predator had been attracted by blood from a nearby fishing vessel, while others believed it was a random encounter in the shark's natural territory. Years later, Matthijs van der Leyen and his tragic day at Devil's Crown were still discussed among divers. Despite the reef's beauty, the ocean remained a stark reminder of the delicate balance between human vulnerability and the raw power of nature. Matt's story became a sobering warning to those who dared to enter the deep. On the morning of January 25, 2024, the waters off the coast of Australia shimmered under a clear sky. The surface was deceptively calm, masking the teeming life beneath. Emily Smith, a 32-year-old marine biologist and passionate conservationist, was part of a small team conducting a critical shark tagging study. The project aimed to gather data on shark migration patterns, a task vital for understanding their role in marine ecosystems and developing strategies for their conservation. The ocean was a second home for Emily, and sharks, despite their fearsome reputation, were creatures she deeply admired. The team had been at sea for 4 days, working tirelessly to tag and release sharks. The process was meticulous. Using bait to attract the animals, they would carefully tag them with satellite trackers and then release them back into the wild unharmed. It was physically demanding work, but one that Emily loved. She believed in dispelling myths about sharks and showcasing their importance to the ocean's balance. By mid-morning, the team had tagged several sharks, including reef and tiger sharks, and was nearing the end of their session. At around 11 a.m., the crew spotted a bull shark cruising near the boat. Known for their adaptability and aggressive tendencies, bull sharks were particularly interesting for the study. This one was large, over 10 feet long, and likely weighed 500 pounds. After luring it closer to the boat, the team successfully tagged it, but the tracking equipment registered an issue as it swam off. Emily, ever meticulous, volunteered to dive and inspect the equipment. A short distance away, the bull shark had swum and appeared calm, its powerful body moving effortlessly through the water. Emily suited up, grabbed her dive slate, and entered the water, her colleagues monitoring her every move from the boat. The underwater world was as serene as it was unpredictable. Shafts of sunlight pierced the surface, illuminating schools of fish darting among the coral. Emily moved with practiced ease, her breathing steady, her focus unwavering. She reached the tagging device, which had snagged on a piece of seaweed, and began working to free it. Unbeknownst to Emily, the bull shark had circled back. Sharks are highly attuned predators, and the vibrations caused by her movements drew its attention. It momentarily hovered on the edge of visibility, its dark silhouette blending into the ocean's murky expanse. Then, with terrifying speed and precision, it charged. The shark struck Emily with incredible force, its jaws clamping down on her torso. The impact knocked the air from her lungs and spun her through the water. Blood clouded the scene almost instantly, a crimson plume that signaled danger to everything nearby. Emily's dive partners, still on the boat, saw the commotion and immediately dove in to assist, but the shark was relentless. Emily struggled, her survival instincts kicking in despite the catastrophic injury. She tried to fend off the shark, but its power was overwhelming. It released her briefly, only to strike again, dragging her into deeper waters. Her colleagues swam frantically toward her, but the predator's ferocity left little room for intervention. Once a sanctuary for Emily, the ocean had turned into a battlefield. The attack lasted less than a minute, but its ferocity was devastating. By the time her dive partners reached her, Emily was unresponsive. They managed to retrieve her body and surface, but the damage was beyond repair. The shark had vanished, leaving behind only the chaos it had created. Back on the boat, the crew performed all they could as they radioed for emergency assistance, but it was too late. Emily had succumbed to her injuries, her life ending in the very environment she had devoted herself to protecting. The news of Emily's death sent shockwaves through the marine biology community and beyond. While shark attacks are rare, they evoke a primal terror that resonates deeply with the public. For those who knew her, however, the tragedy was deeply personal. Emily was a skilled scientist and advocate for ocean conservation who believed in bridging the gap between humans and the natural world. The incident sparked widespread discussions about the inherent risks of studying apex predators in their natural habitats. Bull sharks, unlike great whites, are known to inhabit shallow coastal waters, often venturing into rivers and estuaries. Their proximity to human activity increases the likelihood of encounters, though fatal attacks remain uncommon. Experts speculated that the shark may have been startled or mistook Emily's movements for prey, a tragic consequence of its instincts. In the weeks following the attack, Emily's team worked with marine safety organizations to develop stricter protocols for researchers working in shark-heavy areas. Recommendations included mandatory underwater deterrent devices, enhanced training for recognizing shark behavior, and more stringent guidelines for when and how to enter the water. While these measures couldn't undo the tragedy, they aimed to prevent similar incidents in the future. Emily's family and colleagues established a foundation in her name dedicated to shark conservation and marine research. The organization's mission was to continue her work, promoting coexistence between humans and marine predators while emphasizing safety and respect for the ocean's power. The footage captured during the expedition was never released to the public out of respect for Emily and her loved ones. However, it served as a sobering reminder for those in marine biology. Though breathtakingly beautiful, the ocean is also unpredictable and unforgiving. For all its wonders, it remains a realm where humans are outsiders, subject to its rules and risks. For those who knew her, Emily's legacy was one of courage and commitment. She had dedicated her life to understanding the natural world, unraveling its mysteries, and sharing its beauty with others. Her tragic death underscored the delicate balance between exploration and respect, a balance that every researcher must navigate. In the end, Emily's story became both a cautionary tale and a testament to the indomitable human spirit. She had ventured into the depths not out of recklessness, but out of a desire to protect and understand the creatures that call the ocean home. While her life was cut tragically short, Her passion and purpose left an indelible mark on the world she loved so deeply. On a cold morning in 2005, Humboldt County's rocky coastline became the backdrop for a surfer's tragic tale. Shelter Cove, a town nestled between towering cliffs and dense redwood forests, was as remote as it was beautiful. Unlike the more popular beaches to the south, the Pacific Ocean here was dark, frigid, and unforgiving. The area, known as the Lost Coast, earned its name from its bleak, rugged landscape and erratic sea levels. For decades, adventurous surfers had been drawn to its solitude and some of the best waves in California. But the Lost Coast had a reputation for danger, riptide storms, and the occasional appearance of massive predators beneath the surface. Greg Thorson was one such surfer who embraced those risks. At 37 years old, Greg had lived a transient life, traveling from coastal town to coastal town in search of the perfect wave. A familiar face in the local surf scene, he had a wiry build, sun-bleached hair, and a face weathered by years of salt and sun. For just over a year, Greg had been renting a small cabin on the edge of the redwoods in Shelter Cove. To him, the isolation was a draw, not a deterrent. He relished the chance to surf alone, far away from the noise of less experienced surfers and overcrowded beaches. That morning, as he often did, Greg woke before dawn. The air was crisp and the horizon glowed faintly with the promise of sunrise. Greg parked his rusty blue van at a secluded cove known as Devil's Reach, a spot infamous for its powerful waves and hidden underwater rocks. Few surfers dared to take it on, but Greg had claimed it as his home break. He zipped up his thick wetsuit, waxed his board, a battered but reliable 6 feet 6 inches long shortboard, and paddled out into the cold, glassy water. The ocean was eerily quiet, with no other surfers in sight. The waves were slow but building, and Greg floated beyond the break, scanning the horizon for the next set. The isolation and calm were familiar comforts, but as he stared out into the open sea, something felt different. The rhythmic sound of his breathing and the gentle lapping of water against his board were the only noises in the vast expanse. The sun had just begun to rise, casting a pale golden light over the sea. What Greg didn't know, what no one could have known, was that something else was out there with him. The first sign of danger was subtle, almost imperceptible. Beneath the surface, a shadow moved silently, its massive form blending with the dark depths of the ocean. It was a great white shark nearly 15 feet long and weighing over a ton. This stretch of the Pacific was part of what scientists called the Red Triangle, a region notorious for shark activity. The waters were rich with seals, sea lions, and other prey, making it a prime hunting ground. Greg, paddling atop his board with his arms dangling in the water, unwittingly resembled one of those prey animals. As Greg caught a small wave and paddled back out, the shark began to close the distance. It was deliberate, almost methodical, moving with the slow confidence of an apex predator. Greg sat on his board, scanning the horizon for the next wave, unaware that beneath him the shark was circling. The attack was sudden and violent. Greg's right leg was clamped down by the shark's jaws with unfathomable force as it surged upward, knocking him off his board. The water exploded into a chaotic mix of foam and blood, swirling together in a frantic flurry of movement. Greg fought back with every ounce of strength he had left. He kicked, punched, and thrashed at the shark's muzzle, his heart pounding as his instincts took over. But the predator's grip was unyielding. Its sharp teeth sliced into bone and muscle, each bite sending waves of excruciating pain through his body. The force of the attack was overwhelming, but Greg refused to give in. Greg was able to surface for a brief moment, struggling to breathe. His cries were drowned out by the sound of the waves crashing close by. The deep blue contrasted sharply with the blood which spread like ink in the water. There was silence for a while. Greg floated still after the shark released him, his body limp from shock and blood loss. However, the reprieve was brief. Once more, the shark struck viciously and efficiently, biting into his torso. There was a fatal second attack. As Greg sank below the surface, his body went limp and his consciousness dimmed. The shark, having satisfied its primal hunger, disappeared into the depths, leaving behind only a broken surfboard and a faint trail of blood. Despite the violence that had just unfolded, the waves continued rolling in, indifferent to the tragedy. When Greg did not return after several hours, a search was launched. His van was the first clue, parked at Devil's Reach. Authorities and residents scoured the coastline, and the Coast Guard sent a helicopter to survey the waters. Greg's surfboard was found washed ashore, its edges bearing deep gouges from the shark's teeth. However, his body was never recovered. In the days that followed, the small community of Shelter Cove was left in shock. Greg's disappearance became the subject of somber conversations in the town's lone coffee shop and bar, as locals tried to make sense of the horrific event. People who knew Greg spoke of his talent, his quiet determination, and his deep passion for the sea. Locals avoided the water, at least temporarily, while others vowed never to surf alone again. Marine biologists suggested that the attack was likely a case of mistaken identity, with the shark confusing Greg for a seal or sea lion. Yet this explanation did little to comfort those left behind. The tragedy served as a somber reminder of the ocean's power and unpredictability. The vast, stunning waters had claimed another life. Years later, Greg's name became part of local lore, a cautionary tale shared with newcomers and young surfers. His cabin, now slowly being reclaimed by the forest, stood empty. The surf at Devil's Reach still rolled in, its waves crashing against the rocky shore, timeless and indifferent. Somewhere beneath the surface, a silent predator continued to swim in the Pacific's endless depths. The morning of March 2, 2024, dawned clear and warm over the turquoise waters of the Yucatan Peninsula. Gabriela Sanchez, a 31-year-old tourist from Spain, was ecstatic. Having long dreamed of snorkeling in Mexico's renowned coral reefs, she finally found herself in the idyllic setting she'd imagined. Crystal clear waters teeming with vibrant marine life, framed by the endless horizon of the Caribbean Sea. The excursion began at 8 a.m. as Gabriela joined a group of 8 other tourists and 2 guides aboard a small motorboat. The mood was light and cheerful as they sped toward the reef, the salty breeze tangling their hair and the sun casting golden reflections on the waves. Their guide explained the area's rich biodiversity, emphasizing the beauty of the coral formations and the harmless sea creatures they might encounter. An experienced swimmer, Gabriela felt at ease as she adjusted her snorkeling gear, eager to immerse herself in the underwater world. By 9 a.m., the group had anchored at a shallow section of the reef, surrounded by shimmering schools of fish. Gabriela slipped into the water with a practiced grace, her mask snug and fins propelling her through the gentle currents. Beneath her, the reef came alive, a kaleidoscope of colors as parrotfish darted around the coral and rays glided gracefully over the sandy seabed. Time seemed to slow as she swam, captivated by the beauty of the marine ecosystem. Unbeknownst to the group, the danger was approaching from the deeper waters beyond the reef. A 15-foot tiger shark, a formidable predator recognizable by its striped pattern, was patrolling the area. Though not typically aggressive toward humans, tiger sharks are opportunistic hunters known for their curiosity and unpredictability. It was rare to venture so close to a popular snorkeling site, but environmental factors, including shifting water temperatures and food scarcity, could have driven it nearer to shore. The first sign of trouble was subtle, a sudden stillness among the smaller fish darting around the reef. Gabriela noticed the change but attributed it to the group's presence. Moments later, she felt an inexplicable sense of unease. Her peripheral vision caught a shadow gliding silently through the water. Turning her head, she saw the tiger shark, its massive form cutting through the blue expanse with unnerving precision. Initially, the shark investigated the group, its movements slow and deliberate as it circled at a distance. Spotting the predator, the guide signaled the tourist to stay calm and return to the boat. Gabriela, however, was furthest from the group, her focus on the reef having unknowingly placed her closer to the open water. The shark's behavior shifted abruptly. Its slow circling gave way to a burst of speed, its muscular body propelling it directly toward her. The attack happened in seconds but felt like an eternity. The shark struck with overwhelming force, its powerful jaws clamping onto Gabriela's leg just above the knee. The impact knocked the snorkel from her mouth and she screamed, the sound muffled by the water. Blood clouded the pristine sea as the shark's teeth tore into her flesh, triggering a frenzy of movement. Gabriela thrashed and kicked with all her strength, desperate to break free. Her struggle seemed to agitate the shark further, and it pulled her deeper, twisting and shaking its head. The guides and other snorkelers watched in horror from the surface, unable to intervene without risking their own lives. The water churned violently as the predator's massive tail thrashed, creating waves that rocked the nearby boat. One of the guides, armed only with a small wooden pole, attempted to distract the shark, striking the water and shouting to divert its attention. The effort was partially successful. The shark released Gabriella momentarily, but the damage was catastrophic. Her leg was mangled, bone exposed where the flesh had been torn away, and her body was limp as she floated, blood billowing around her. The reprieve was short-lived. The shark circled back, its predatory instincts fully engaged. This time it grabbed her by the torso, dragging her beneath the surface. The frantic movements subsided as Gabriella's body disappeared into the depths, leaving only a crimson stain on the water. The remaining tourists scrambled back to the boat, their terror palpable. The guides quickly accounted for everyone, ensuring no one else was in immediate danger. Calls for emergency assistance were made as the group watched helplessly, their joy from moments earlier replaced by shock and despair. Rescue boats and a helicopter arrived within half an hour, but it was too late. Gabriella's body was eventually recovered, her injuries confirming the severity of the attack. The shark had vanished, retreating to the open ocean after the encounter. The attack sent shockwaves through the local community and beyond. The Yucatan Peninsula, renowned for its tranquil waters and thriving tourism industry, was suddenly under scrutiny. Shark attacks in the region were exceedingly rare, and this incident raised urgent questions about safety protocols for snorkeling excursions. Authorities immediately suspended all snorkeling and diving activities near the reef and launched an investigation into the tragedy's circumstances. Marine biologists speculated about the shark's behavior, noting that tiger sharks are not typically aggressive unless provoked or confused. The combination of blood in the water, flailing movements, and the proximity to a fishing boat's discarded waste likely triggered the shark's predatory response. They also emphasized the importance of education and precaution when sharing marine environments with apex predators. Gabriella's death became a rallying point for changes in the region's tourism industry. New safety measures were implemented, including mandatory shark awareness training for guides, stricter regulations on disposing of fish waste near snorkeling sites, and enhanced surveillance of marine activity. Additionally, tours began equipping boats with shark deterrent devices and medical kits capable of handling severe injuries. For those who had been with Gabriella that day, the trauma was indelible. The image of her final moments haunted them, a stark reminder of nature's duality, its beauty and its brutality. Her family, devastated by the loss, honored her adventurous spirit by supporting marine conservation efforts, aiming to educate others about the delicate balance between human activity and wildlife. In the quiet year of 2000, the untouched coastline of Ahipara, New Zealand, stretched for miles, framed by rugged cliffs and endless azure waters. Part of the country's renowned 90-mile beach, it was a favorite for adventurers seeking solitude and raw beauty. Despite its allure, the area carried an unspoken reputation for danger. The deep, cold waters just offshore were a haven for marine life, including great white sharks, often drawn closer after storms churned up the seabed. Samuel Sam Radcliffe, a 32-year-old outdoor enthusiast and seasoned paddleboarder, had always found solace in these remote waters. Known for his adventurous spirit and quiet demeanor, Sam had moved to New Zealand from Bristol, England, seeking a life unspoiled by urban chaos. He often spoke of the ocean as a place of peace, unaware of the tragedy that awaited him. Sam packed his paddleboard onto his truck and drove toward Ahipara Beach on a cloudy morning. A recent storm had passed, leaving behind an eerie stillness. The shoreline was deserted, save for a few seagulls skimming the waves. To Sam, the emptiness was perfect. He craved the isolation, the rhythmic sound of his paddle slicing through the water, and the chance to disconnect from the world. By mid-morning, Sam had ventured far from shore. All around him the sea stretched in all directions, a deep glassy blue. He paddled slowly, occasionally glancing down at the dark depths below. Even Sam couldn't ignore the weight of the silence, though the solitude was thrilling. He had received warnings from the locals about this area, known as a shark hunting ground. Sam had dismissed them as exaggerated stories meant to scare tourists. But as he glided farther out, he noticed the water beneath his board growing darker, not from depth, but from movement. A sudden shock sent Sam sprawling into the ocean. His paddleboard, once a symbol of serenity, was now drifting a few feet away, a useless buoy in the vast water. Panic surged as he realized what had happened. A great white shark, nearly 4 meters long, had struck the board, testing it as potential prey. The shark attacked again, its enormous jaws clamping down on Sam's leg before he could react. The force of the bite was unimaginable, and the water around him turned crimson. Sam thrashed, desperate to free himself, but the predator's grip was unrelenting. His attempts to swim back to his board were futile, each movement seeming to provoke the shark further. The attack lasted only moments, but the aftermath was harrowing. The shark released Sam, leaving him to float helplessly in the blood-streaked water. His leg was severely injured and his strength was fading fast. The ocean, once his sanctuary, now seemed an endless, indifferent expanse. Sam clung to his board, hoping against hope for rescue. On shore, a local fisherman named E.R.U. Thompson noticed the commotion far out at sea. E.R.U., a lifelong resident of Ahipara, was familiar with the waters and their hidden dangers. Using binoculars, he spotted the paddleboard and the faint outline of a struggling figure. Recognizing the urgency, he alerted the authorities and launched his small boat in a desperate attempt to help. By the time E.R.U. reached Sam, the situation was dire. Sam was unconscious, his injuries severe, and his body cold from blood loss. E.R.U. pulled him onto the boat and sped back to shore, where paramedics were waiting. Despite their best efforts, Sam was pronounced dead upon arrival. The official cause of death was blood loss and trauma from the shark attack. The news of Sam's death sent shockwaves through the tight-knit community. Ahipara had always been a place where nature's beauty and dangers coexisted, but this incident was a stark reminder of how thin the line between the two could be. Experts later speculated that the storm had stirred up fish closer to the surface, drawing sharks into the area. Sam's movement on the paddleboard likely mimicked that of prey, triggering the attack. In the weeks that followed, local authorities implemented stricter safety measures, including improved signage and patrols in known shark zones. Marine biologists studied the waters to understand shark behavior in the area, while locals shared their encounters and close calls. The incident also sparked debates about human interaction with marine ecosystems and the risks of venturing into their domain. Sam's family, devastated by the loss, chose to honor his adventurous spirit by establishing the Radcliffe Foundation. The foundation was dedicated to promoting ocean safety and supporting shark conservation efforts. While they grieved his death, his family found solace in the idea that Sam's love for the ocean could inspire others to approach it with respect and caution. Samuel Radcliffe's tragic encounter became a somber legend in Ahipara. For those who knew him, it was a reminder of the fragility of life and the power of nature. For others, it served as a cautionary tale, a haunting echo of the risks beneath the ocean's serene surface. In early 2024, Dutch reality show star Liza Visser was riding the wave of international fame. Known for her bold stunts and daring survival challenges, she had built her career on pushing boundaries and courting danger. Her latest venture was a survival series filmed across some of the world's most extreme environments. As an adrenaline junkie and self-proclaimed ambassador for humanity's connection to nature, she thrived on spectacle and controversy. However, her next challenge, set on Australia's rugged coastline, would be her. The segment showcased Liza navigating the harsh Australian outback and coastal waters, pushing her skills to the limit in one of the world's most unforgiving environments. After weeks of traversing arid terrain, her team arrived at the Southern Ocean, notorious for its dense population of great white sharks. The original plan was straightforward. Liza would observe the predators within a reinforced cage, delivering her usual commentary on the importance of coexisting with apex species. But as filming progressed, the crew saw an opportunity to create something unforgettable. They urged Liza to abandon the cage and dive directly into the shark-infested waters, emphasizing how it would elevate the show and guarantee skyrocketing ratings. Eager to boost her popularity and captivated by the boldness of the idea, Liza embraced the challenge, seeing it as the ultimate way to prove her daring spirit and connect with audiences in a way few have ever had. The fishing boat was anchored near a reef, and the surrounding waters teemed with activity. Earlier that morning, local fishermen had discarded leftover bait, attracting a small group of great whites. The sleek and powerful sharks glided through the water, their dorsal fins cutting the surface with quiet menace. Liza, dressed in a wetsuit and equipped with a mask, prepared herself for the dive. When she leaped from the boat, the impact of her splash broke the stillness. The sharks, startled by the sudden disturbance, initially darted away. Liza treaded water confidently, waving at the cameras and gesturing to the crew. Her movements were deliberate, designed to convey calmness, but she could not control the ocean's unpredictability. Within moments, the sharks began to circle back, drawn by curiosity and the vibrations caused by Liza's movements. A minor scrape she sustained on her descent introduced blood into the water, a signal that turned their curiosity into predatory focus. The once peaceful group of great whites became increasingly agitated, their movements faster and more erratic. The shift was sudden and devastating. One of the sharks surged forward, its massive jaws closing around Liza's leg. The force of the bite dragged her beneath the surface. She fought to break free, kicking and striking with all her strength, but her struggles only heightened the frenzy. The other sharks, now fully engaged, joined the attack. Their powerful tails churned the water into a violent froth as they tore at her, each bite fueled by instinct and the chaotic energy of the moment. The crew watched in horror, paralyzed by the speed and brutality of the attack. Attempts to intervene were futile. The fishing boat was too far from Liza's position to offer immediate help, and entering the water was out of the question. The camera continued to roll, capturing every agonizing second as Liza's flailing movements grew weaker. The water turned red within minutes, contrasting with the ocean's deep blue. Liza's battered and lifeless body disappeared beneath the surface as the sharks consumed her. The attack was over almost as quickly as it began, leaving a haunting silence. The sharks, now satiated, dispersed, their sleek forms vanishing into the depths. Authorities arrived shortly after the crew's frantic distress call, but could do little. Search teams scoured the area, recovering only fragments of Liza's gear. The footage of the attack, however, remained intact, a chilling testament to her final moments. The incident sent shockwaves around the world. Liza's death became a flashpoint for discussions about the ethics of reality television and the dangers of sensationalism. Critics argued that her reckless decision to enter the water had been fueled by a toxic combination of ego and the pursuit of ratings, a deadly cocktail that left no room for respect or caution. Others pointed to the responsibility of the crew, who had failed to stop her from taking such a perilous risk. Wildlife experts weighed in, emphasizing that great white sharks, while not inherently aggressive toward humans, are opportunistic predators. Introducing blood and erratic movements into their environment can quickly escalate their behavior into a feeding frenzy. In this case, the sharks were not acting out of malice, but instinct. The aftermath also reignited debates about human interaction with wildlife. Advocacy groups highlighted the incident as an example of humanity's tendency to romanticize apex predators while ignoring their inherent dangers. Calls for stricter regulations on wildlife filming in dangerous environments gained traction, as did campaigns to educate the public about respecting natural boundaries. For Liza's family, friends, and fans, her death was a devastating loss. Tributes poured in, celebrating her adventurous spirit and commitment to pushing limits. Yet her legacy was complicated by the circumstances of her demise. While she had inspired countless people to embrace the outdoors and confront their fears, her final act served as a sobering cautionary tale. Though never released to the public, the footage of the attack was reportedly used in educational campaigns to underscore the importance of safety in wildlife encounters. It became a grim lesson in the consequences of underestimating the natural world, where a perilously thin line separates courage and recklessness. Ultimately, Liza Visser's life was a testament to the human desire for adventure and connection with nature. But her tragic death served as a stark reminder of the unforgiving reality of the wild, where even the boldest spirit is no match for the forces of instinct and survival. Two experienced marine biologists, Dr. Claire Weatherall and Dr. Jonathan Jax Varnett, set out on what they expected to be a routine research dive. in the spring of 2023 off the southern coast of Andros Island in the Bahamas. Known for its abundance of sharks, particularly reef sharks, the area was perfect for their study on shark behavior related to coral bleaching. While tagging sharks for further analysis, their main focus was to assess the ecological health of the region. Claire and Jax set out from the Pelagic Dawn, a research vessel rented and operated by Emil Santoro, a local captain. About 35 miles from the island, they reached their dive site, known as the Blue Rift, a deep underwater trench surrounded by coral plateaus. While the area teemed with marine life, it had a spooky reputation among fishermen, who often reported strange shark behavior such as increased aggression, irregular swimming patterns, and the mysterious disappearance of smaller marine life. For Claire and Jax, these tales presented the perfect scientific mystery, though others dismissed them as mere superstition. As they descended, the water darkened, sunlight turning into a faint bluish haze, and they plunged into the cerulean depths. They reached the edge of the trench at around 120 feet. The bare seafloor stood in stark contrast to the vibrant coral ecosystems they had encountered on earlier dives. Claire noticed an eerie silence. There were no small fish in sight. Jax pointed to the trench's bottom where they made out a group of large, dark shapes. Initially, they thought it was a school of dormant sharks, a common sight in deeper waters. But as they got closer, their curiosity turned to confusion. The sharks lay on their sides, unnaturally still. When Claire realized they weren't sleeping but had passed away, her heart sank. Scattered across the seafloor were the remains of at least a dozen sharks, mostly tiger and bull sharks. Some had deep gashes along their flanks, others were partially decomposed, and a few were missing fins. For Claire and Jax, seasoned marine biologists, the sight was chilling. They began documenting the scene with close-up shots of the carcasses using waterproof cameras. Unusual bite marks marred the sharks, as though another shark had caused the wounds. But the sheer number of dead sharks suggested something far stranger. There were no discarded nets or fishing lines nearby that could explain the carnage. It seemed as though the sharks had been lured to this spot and killed in a grisly underwater ritual. Jack swam ahead and he continued observing a particularly large bull shark carcass. As he examined it, his flashlight revealed something embedded in the flesh near its dorsal fin, metallic and sharp, resembling shrapnel. Jax carefully pried it loose and placed it in his sample bag for later analysis. Uneasy, he couldn't shake the feeling that the shard didn't belong in the natural world. It looked unclean, almost archaic. Suddenly, Claire felt, more than heard, a low, vibrating hum that pierced the eerie silence of the trench. The deep, throbbing sound seemed to come from the trench itself, resonating through her chest. Jax had already tensed, his eyes locked on the sound's origin. Claire turned to signal him, but before she could act, a massive shadow loomed from below. At least 12 feet long, it was a bull shark. But something was off. Its movements were jerky, nearly mechanical, and its clouded eyes suggested it was blind. Despite the scars matching those of the dead sharks around them, the creature was alive and charging straight at them. Claire kicked hard, trying to avoid it, but the shark's jaws snapped just inches from her leg. The creature was closer to Jax, and he wasn't as lucky. The shark clamped down on his arm, its teeth sinking through his wetsuit and into his flesh. Jax's muffled scream echoed through his regulator. Reacting quickly, Claire pulled the emergency inflator on his buoyancy control device, causing a sudden air burst that startled the shark. It released Jax, momentarily backing off. Realizing they couldn't stay in the trench any longer, Claire grabbed Jax's hand and the two began their emergency ascent. Once they reached the surface, Claire waved frantically at Emil, who was already pulling them aboard the Pelagic Dawn. Struggling to breathe, Claire immediately applied pressure to Jax's heavily bleeding arm while Emil radioed for help. Once back on shore, Jax was rushed to a nearby hospital. Although he would survive, the bite had severely damaged his muscles and nerves, requiring months of surgery and rehabilitation. The incident quickly caught the attention of marine experts and local authorities. A team led by renowned shark behaviorist Dr. Helena Marikova reviewed the video Claire and Jax had captured. Marikova observed the bull shark's unusual aggression and the strange bite patterns on the dead sharks. She hypothesized that the sharks may have been engaged in territorial disputes driven by environmental stressors. such as pollution or water temperature changes. However, the metallic shard found in the carcass only raised more questions. Was there evidence of human intervention, or was it something else entirely? A second expedition to the trench was planned, this time with a larger group of divers and more advanced equipment. The findings only deepened the mystery. It was discovered that the trench had unusually high electromagnetic activity, which some scientists speculated could affect shark behavior. Additionally, more metal fragments were found, suggesting that the sharks might have been injured by a weapon or some sort of underwater equipment. However, no conclusive explanation was reached. Claire and Jax were deeply affected by the experience. Despite his permanent scars, Jax continued his work in marine biology, focusing on shark conservation and advocating for stronger protections for their habitats. Claire, on the other hand, became obsessed with uncovering the truth behind the trench. She wrote several papers on the incident, but the scientific community greeted her theories with skepticism. The Blue Rift remains an enigma to this day. Local legends surrounding the area have only grown stronger, with some claiming the trench is cursed and serves as a graveyard for extinct marine life. The ocean still holds many secrets, some of which even the most seasoned explorers have yet to uncover. Whether the shark graveyard is the result of natural events, human intervention, or something far stranger. On October 14, 2024, the Golden, California coastline was alive with the familiar rhythms of the ocean. Surfers dotted the water at Padaro Beach, a popular beach known for its consistent waves and postcard-perfect scenery. Among them was Alex Williams, a 29-year-old seasoned surfer who had spent countless hours mastering the breaks at this spot. The late afternoon sun cast its amber glow over the waves, creating a serene yet fleeting moment as daylight faded. Alex, energized by the crisp autumn air, paddled out into the lineup. The waves were modest, rolling in unhurried, offering just enough for a satisfying session. He was at ease, his mind attuned to the pull of the water and the promise of the next wave. Around him, a handful of other surfers lingered, savoring the tail end of the day. The horizon glimmered with soft hues, and the shore was quiet, the crowds of beachgoers having thinned as evening approached. The water grew darker and colder as the sun dipped closer to the horizon. Shadows deepened beneath the surface, giving the ocean an enigmatic quality that seasoned surfers like Alex were used to navigating. Yet, for all its allure, the sea carried an undercurrent of danger which Alex knew but rarely dwelled on. Padaro Beach had a history of great white shark activity, particularly during the fall months when juvenile sharks frequented the region. Local authorities regularly issued advisories, but attacks were infrequent, making the warnings easy to overlook. With one final glance toward the horizon, Alex began paddling further out, chasing a set of waves forming in the distance. His movements were fluid and confident, his silhouette merging with the water beneath him, but a sudden invisible shift occurred beneath the surface as he paddled. Unbeknownst to Alex, a large great white shark had been circling the area. At nearly 15 feet long, the predator had likely been drawn to the cove by fish or seals earlier in the day. The shark's instincts, honed over millions of years, were razor sharp. It moved silently through the darkening water, its senses attuned to the vibrations and sounds of the surfers above. For the great white, Alex's paddling silhouette might have resembled the shape of a seal, a familiar target. In an instant, the predator struck. Rising swiftly from the depths, the shark launched a ferocious attack, its powerful jaws clamping onto Alex's side. The force of the bite sent a shockwave through his body and knocked him off his board, the fiberglass snapping under the impact. The water erupted in chaos as the great white retreated momentarily, leaving Alex thrashing and bleeding in its wake. The attack severed a major artery, and blood quickly began to pool in the surrounding water. Adrenaline coursed through Alex as he struggled to stay afloat, his mind racing between survival instincts and the paralyzing reality of his injuries. The other surfers, startled by the commotion, turned toward the source of the disturbance. Some froze, stunned by the sight of the dorsal fin slicing through the water, while others paddled toward Alex, desperate to help. The great white circled again, its movements slower but no less deliberate. It had fulfilled its predatory impulse, leaving Alex critically injured and vulnerable. Nearby, surfers shouted and splashed, attempting to ward off the shark, but their efforts could not undo the damage. When they reached Alex, He was barely conscious, his blood loss rapid and catastrophic. The group worked frantically to pull Alex onto a longboard, their hands slick with his blood as they fought against the currents. Each second felt like an eternity as they paddled toward the shore, their hearts pounding with fear and determination. The shoreline, once peaceful, was now a scene of urgency as bystanders rushed to assist, calling for help and attempting to staunch Alex's wounds. But the injuries were too severe, the vital minutes after the attack slipping away like grains of sand through an hourglass. By the time emergency responders arrived, Alex had succumbed to his injuries. The artery severed in the attack had caused massive blood loss, and despite the efforts of those around him, there was nothing more that could be done. His lifeless body lay on the sand, surrounded by the broken pieces of his surfboard, a haunting reminder of the fragility of life in the face of nature's raw power. The aftermath of the attack reverberated far beyond Padaro Beach. News of Alex's death spread rapidly, sparking an outpouring of grief from the surfing community and renewed calls for measures to address shark activity along the California coast. The beach was immediately closed, with authorities warning about the heightened risk of shark encounters. Marine biologists were brought in to study the incident, and drones were deployed to monitor shark movements along the coastline. Experts explained that while great white shark attacks are rare, they often occur when sharks mistake humans for prey. Surfers' shadows and movements in the water can closely resemble seals, particularly at dusk, when visibility is low. In Alex's case, the time of day and location may have inadvertently placed him in harm's way. The tragedy also reignited debates about balancing human recreation with marine conservation. Advocates for shark protection emphasize the importance of understanding and respecting the ocean's ecosystems, pointing out that sharks are critical to maintaining the health of marine environments. Others, however, called for increased safety measures, such as more frequent patrols, improved shark detection technologies, and clearer guidelines for water activity during peak shark season. For those who knew Alex, the loss was deeply personal. Friends and family remembered him as a passionate and fearless surfer who found solace and purpose in the ocean. He had always approached life with a sense of adventure, embracing its beauty and risks. While his death was a reminder of the ocean's dangers, it also underscored its immense power and mystery, a force that commands both awe and respect. Padaro Beach slowly reopened to the public in the following weeks, but the attack's shadow lingered. Surfers returned to the water with heightened caution, their connection to the waves now tinged with an awareness of the unseen world below. Alex's story became a cautionary tale, a testament to the delicate balance between human ambition and the untamed forces of nature. Though his life was tragically cut short, Alex's memory endured in the hearts of those who shared his love for the sea. His final moments, though marked by terror, were also a reflection of his unwavering spirit, a life lived fully even in the face of the unpredictable. In the summer of 1997, families flocked to Florida's sunny beaches for relaxing getaways. The Harwicks were no exception. Coming from their quiet hometown of Montclair, New Jersey, they traveled to Sanibel Island, a picturesque seaside town known for its calm waters and white sand beaches. Eager to escape the daily grind and enjoy the beauty of the Gulf of Mexico, Dale, his wife Marissa, their 8-year-old daughter Lily, and 12-year-old son Ryan were excited for a week of family fun. Bowman's Beach was known as a family-friendly spot, and that day it seemed like the perfect choice. A peaceful stretch of sand lined with seashells and mangroves, it felt worlds away from the city's hustle. The July sun bathed the Gulf waters, making them warm, calm, and shallow near the shore. The Harwicks set up their spot early with a heap of beach toys for Lily, a cooler full of sandwiches, and a big striped umbrella. Dale Harwick, a history teacher, settled into his chair with a well-worn paperback. Marissa applied sunscreen to Lily's face, while Ryan, recently fascinated by marine life after watching a documentary on ocean predators, waded knee-deep into the water with a small net, searching for crabs and minnows. The day seemed perfect, but the Gulf of Mexico held secrets the Harwicks were about to uncover in the most terrifying way possible. By mid-afternoon, the beach was bustling, but the Harwicks were absorbed in their little world. Lily had built an uneven sandcastle nearby, and Marissa was relaxing with Dale under the umbrella, enjoying iced tea. distracted by the shimmer of tiny fish darting around his legs. Ryan ventured deeper into the water, reaching waist depth. The glassy surface of the Gulf reflected the clear sky, and the soft sound of the waves gave no hint of the danger just a few feet away. Then it came as a shock. The family was jolted into panic when a shrill scream shattered the peaceful ambience. Marissa turned toward the water, her heart racing as she dropped her drink. Dale, already standing, saw Ryan flailing uncontrollably. His face was twisted in pain as the water around him turned red. For an instant the scene seemed unreal, nearly unfathomable. But then Dale realized the truth. A shark had attacked his son. Like a freight train, the predator, later identified as a bull shark, clamped down on Ryan's thigh. The bull shark, one of the most dangerous species due to its aggression and ability to enter shallow waters, had struck with horrifying force. Adrenaline overriding all other instincts, Dale ran toward the water. Without thinking, he dove in, reaching for his son as the salt water stung his eyes. Unfazed by Dale's approach, the shark continued to hold Ryan's leg, violently shaking its head as if trying to rip a piece of flesh off. Dale grabbed Ryan's arms and pulled with all his strength, his frantic yells drowning out his son's screams. His left arm came dangerously close to the shark's jaws during the struggle, and the predator quickly shifted its attention to him. The shark's sharp teeth sliced through muscle and flesh with terrifying precision, clamping down on Dale's forearm. Despite the excruciating pain, Dale held on to Ryan, then released him, pushing him toward the shore with one final desperate tug. After wading in up to her knees, Marissa pulled Ryan the remaining distance to the shore, yelling for help as blood spurted from his leg. Nearby beachgoers, stunned at first, quickly sprang into action. Some called 911 while others hurried to assist, but Dale was not so fortunate. The shark, drawn by the blood, made another lunge. This time it grabbed Dale by the torso and pulled him beneath the surface. The water churned violently, turning into a frothy mix of white and red for several terrifying moments. When Marissa called out his name, Dale was already gone. Chaos erupted on the beach. Strangers worked together, using towels and improvised tourniquets to stop the bleeding from Ryan's leg as they carried him to safety. Lily, too young to fully grasp the gravity of the situation, sobbed uncontrollably, clinging to her mother. Marissa, filled with disbelief, kept looking out into the water, refusing to leave the shore. When emergency personnel arrived, they quickly transported Ryan to a nearby hospital. Despite their efforts to reassure Marissa, their somber expressions spoke volumes. Search crews were deployed to find Dale, combing the waters for any sign of him. Hours passed, and as the sun began to set, casting a pink and orange glow over the sky, a rescue boat returned. Bloodied and bruised, Dale's lifeless body was found. There was a flurry of mourning and recovery following the attack. Though Ryan's leg was saved after numerous surgeries, he would carry both psychological and physical scars for the rest of his life. Marissa, devastated by her husband's passing, struggled to hold her family together. Their once normal lives were forever altered when the Harwicks returned to New Jersey a few weeks later. The story of their tragedy became a sobering reminder of the ocean's unpredictable nature in the years that followed. In response to the attack, Bowman's Beach implemented more stringent safety measures, such as increased patrols and shark warning systems. But Marissa felt that no amount of safety could erase the memory of that day. Unable to face the vastness of the ocean without reliving her terror, she completely avoided it. Ryan, however, turned his trauma into a passion for marine life protection. As he grew older, he devoted his life to studying sharks and advocating for their conservation, while also educating others about the dangers they pose. Still, he often questioned whether his survival had come at the expense of his father's sacrifice. The Gulf of Mexico's serene beauty continued to attract thousands of tourists, but for the Harwicks, it would forever be the place of their nightmare. A tragic chapter in a story of love, loss, and survival, Bowman's Beach in 1997 remained etched in their hearts, though time slowly softened the edges of their agony. The Arctic waters off the coast of Norway were calm on the morning of June 12, 2024, their icy depths shimmering under the pale sunlight of a midsummer day. Lars Jensen, a 53-year-old fisherman with over 3 decades of experience, had spent hours working the frigid waters near the Arctic Circle. His small crew, accustomed to the grueling demands of fishing in one of Earth's most remote and unforgiving regions, was already preparing to return to shore after a productive day. Lars was a seasoned fisherman who was well respected in his coastal village for his knowledge of the sea. A stoic and reliable man, he had always been drawn to the Arctic's rugged beauty and embraced its isolation and harsh conditions. On this particular day, his boat, laden with freshly caught cod and halibut, bobbed gently in the cold waves as the crew secured the lines and prepared to haul in the last of their catch. The waters near the Arctic Circle were as mysterious as they were treacherous. Beneath their glassy surface lurked creatures perfectly adapted to the extreme environment. Among them was the Greenland shark, a massive, slow-moving species often unnoticed in its icy domain. Rarely seen and even less usually encountered by humans, these sharks were known for their extraordinary longevity, with some living over 400 years. Though their primary diet consisted of fish and scavenged remains, their immense size and powerful jaws made them formidable predators. As the afternoon sun dipped closer to the horizon, Lars leaned over the boat's edge to retrieve a fishing line trailing in the water. The line had snagged on something heavy, and Lars, always thorough, decided to investigate rather than cut it loose. He reached down, straining to see what was below, the icy wind biting his face. The quiet and still ocean seemed indifferent to the bustling activity aboard the vessel. But in an instant, that stillness was shattered. Without warning, a massive Greenland shark surged upward from the depths, its dark form materializing like a shadow in the water. The shark struck with startling speed, its enormous jaws clamping down on Lars's arm as he reached for the line. The force of the bite pulled him off balance, and before the crew could react, Lars was dragged overboard into the freezing sea. Panic erupted on the deck as the crew scrambled to save their captain. One crew member lunged for Lars's outstretched hand, but the shark's immense strength and the pull of the water were too much. Lars disappeared beneath the surface, his body thrashing as the shark dragged him deeper. The cold, dark water churned with movement, starkly contrasting the tranquility of moments before. Lars fought desperately, his survival instincts kicking in as he tried to free himself from the shark's grip. The predator's powerful jaws, lined with rows of sharp teeth, tore through flesh and bone with terrifying efficiency. The crew threw ropes and gaff hooks into the water, shouting as they tried to locate him. For a brief moment, Lars surfaced, his face a mask of pain and determination. But the shark's relentless strength pulled him under again. In the chaos, the water became a maelstrom of blood and foam. The cold sapped Lars's strength, and the relentless thrashing of the shark made it impossible for him to break free. The predator, driven by instinct and the confusion of the struggle, delivered a series of crushing bites. The encounter lasted only minutes despite Lars's efforts and the crew's frantic attempts to save him. When the water finally stilled, the crew was left staring into the empty expanse. Their captain was gone. The stunned crew immediately radioed for help, their voices shaking as they described the unprecedented attack. Within hours, rescue teams and marine biologists arrived at the scene, their boats scouring the area for any sign of Lars or the shark. What they found was grim. Pieces of fishing gear, fragments of clothing, and blood-stained water that told the story of the tragedy. The attack sent shockwaves through the small fishing community. Greenland sharks were not known to attack humans, and their remote Arctic habitat made encounters exceedingly rare. Marine biologists speculated that the shark might have been drawn to the area by the boat's activity, mistaking the vibrations of the fishing line for the movements of prey. The species' size, reaching up to 23 feet and weighing over a ton, combined with its powerful bite, made such an attack devastating. In the following weeks, the incident sparked widespread discussion about the risks of fishing in remote Arctic waters. Lars's death was a sobering reminder of the ocean's unpredictability, even for those who knew it best. The Greenland shark had been considered an elusive and enigmatic creature for decades, but the attack highlighted its potential danger under certain circumstances. The tragedy also reignited debates about human intrusion into the natural habitats of apex predators. Conservationists emphasize the importance of understanding and respecting the delicate balance of Arctic ecosystems, while others called for stricter safety protocols for fishing vessels operating in shark-inhabited waters. For Lars's family and friends, the loss was deeply personal. He was remembered as a skilled fisherman, a devoted father, and a man who had spent his life navigating the harsh but beautiful Arctic seas. His death left a void in the tight-knit community, a reminder of the thin line between coexistence with nature and the dangers it could unleash. In time, the fishing boat that had once carried Lars and his crew returned to the water, its new captain determined to honor his predecessor's legacy. But for those who knew Lars, the memory of that fateful day in June would never fade. The Arctic waters, vast and mysterious, held both life and death within their depths, a reality Lars Jensen had known and respected, but one that ultimately claimed him. In 2007, off the northeastern coast of Queensland, Australia, a popular diving site called the Mariner's Descent attracted adventurers from around the world. The site was home to the wreckage of the Elysian Star, a cargo ship that sank during a violent tropical storm in 1933. The ship lay at the bottom of the Coral Sea, its skeletal remains encrusted with coral and marine life. Over the decades, divers had been drawn to the site by stories of eerie corridors and rumored treasures hidden within the wreck. While the site was renowned for its beauty, it also had a reputation for being dangerous. Tina Arleston, a 32-year-old experienced scuba diver, joined a small expedition to explore the wreck on a warm spring morning. Having dived in remote locations like the Red Sea and the Galapagos Islands, Tina had years of experience and was known for her meticulousness. She always double-checked her equipment and followed safety protocols without fail. The group she joined included Oren Westlake, the seasoned dive leader, Isla Fenrick, a marine archaeologist with a sharp wit, Zane Rathmore, a reserved man who never seemed to remove his aviator sunglasses, and two local dive assistants nicknamed the Twins, who despite their nickname were not actually related. The group slowly descended through the cold, clear water, their movements calculated and precise as they approached the Elysian Star. At 30 meters deep, the wreck loomed in front of them like a ghostly giant, its barnacle-encrusted hull tilted on its side. Schools of fish swam in chaotic bursts, their scales glinting like scattered coins in the sunlight that filtered down from above. The eerie silence of the ocean around them was broken only by the soft hissing of their scuba tanks and the muffled sounds of their movements. Tina felt her pulse quicken with the rush of adrenaline as they neared the wreck. The hole in the bow was large enough for them to pass through, and as she passed through it, the world inside the ship transformed. The interior was dark, the only light coming from their dive lights, casting eerie shadows on the rusted walls and forgotten cargo. The smell of salt and decay lingered in the water, a reminder of the ship's long-forgotten voyage. Inside, the passageways were narrow and twisted, remnants of the ship's former life now swallowed by the ocean's embrace. Tina moved forward with purpose, excited to explore the parts of the wreck that had been untouched. Her group followed closely behind, making their way through the tight, winding corridors with a quiet, focused energy. But as they ventured deeper into the wreck, Tina couldn't shake the feeling that the ship was watching them, as if it were alive, holding its secrets just beyond reach. The dim, murky water seemed to press in around Tina as she adjusted to the sudden drop in temperature. The metal taste in her mouth, a sign of increased pressure, made her realize just how deep they had gone into the wreck. The once clear water was now clouded with silt and debris, and the cold seemed to seep into her bones. Oren moved forward, his dive light cutting through the darkness, illuminating scattered remnants of barrels and crates that lined the perimeter of the cargo hold. These pieces of the ship's forgotten past had been swallowed by the sea, with only faint outlines left behind in the silt. Tina swept her light over the area, examining the ruins of the ship's cargo. Some crates were completely rotted away, while others were barely recognizable, corroded by decades of saltwater exposure. The others spread out, methodically scouring the area. Tina couldn't help but feel a sense of isolation, as the dark water seemed to consume the space around them. The wreck was vast, but strangely it felt claustrophobic, its tangled passageways and rusted remains trapping them in an oceanic tomb. As she moved further into the hold, Tina's light flickered over something unusual, a piece of debris that seemed oddly out of place. The shape was too distinct, too intact compared to the rest of the wreckage. Her curiosity piqued. Tina swam closer, trying to make sense of the object. The water around her shifted with the current, and for a moment it felt like the ship was shifting with it, groaning under its own weight. She pushed the thought away, focusing instead on the mysterious object ahead. She glanced around, but nothing seemed out of place. Shaking off the uneasy feeling, she moved toward a cluster of crates against the far wall. Her leg brushed against something. She spun around, flashlight sweeping the water. At first, there was nothing. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she caught a swift, dark shadow disappearing into the depths. Before she could react, it hit her. The hammerhead shark lunged from the darkness, slamming into her with terrifying force. Its massive jaws locked onto her side, ripping through her wetsuit and sinking deep into her flesh. Tina's scream rang out, her voice crackling through the radio. As the group searched, their flashlights darted in all directions. Oren's voice crackled over the radio, panic cutting through his usual calm as he shouted that Tina had been hit. Tina flailed, her arms reaching out in desperation, but the shark was relentless. It released her for a moment, then struck again, its jagged teeth sinking into her shoulder. Blood clouded the water, a dark plume swirling in the current. Chaos erupted among the group, voices shouting into their radios as they scrambled to reach her. But the shark was faster and stronger. With one final, powerful lunge, it dragged Tina into the darkness. Her flashlight slipped from her grip, spinning slowly as it sank into the silt below. The group searched desperately, their beams cutting through the gloom, but Tina was gone. The shark had vanished too, leaving only a trail of blood and shredded equipment. Oren's voice shook as he called for an emergency ascent, ordering everyone to surface. Back on the boat, the mood was grim. The twins sat silently, their faces pale, while Isla paced nervously, muttering to herself. Oren radioed the Coast Guard, but everyone knew it was too late. In the days that followed, a thorough search was conducted, but Tina's body was never found. Authorities speculated that the shark, likely a large great hammerhead, had mistaken her for prey. The incident rocked the diving community, and the Elysian Star was temporarily closed to divers. For Oren and the others, the experience left a scar that never fully healed. Tina Arlston's name was etched into a memorial plaque near the dive site, a somber reminder of the risks that come with exploring the unknown.